Welcome back, guys. I would like to thank you guys for the huge support you are providing to this series. Today's like goal is 500 likes, and I know you guys will achieve in an instant. So go ahead and hit the like button, and subscribe if you haven't yet. If you haven't watched the previous part, the link is in the description. Let's continue the story. Such a vile necromancer. Is messing up another person's house your hobby? How can you say that to such lovable creatures? Well, it might look like that to others. Alex stroked the monsters lined up next to him. In his eyes, those monsters truly did look lovely. No matter how you look at them, those things should just be hung out to dry. I don't think even Lasik would work on your disgusting eyes. I'd rather pull them out. As Jin Hyuk pulled out his dagger, blue energy enveloped it. The dazzling light swallowed up the entire blade at once. A dagger. Indeed, as expected of an S rank with this level of magic, it is outstanding even among S ranks. However, even after seeing the sword energy on the dagger, Alex seemed relaxed. If you believe in the rags behind you and shout so much, you are making a mistake. Did you think I would deal with you alone? Alex smiled, and, at the same time, black energy swept through the room. Alex activated LV5's magic melting furnace. It was a wide-area skill that covered the entire mansion, giving Jin Hyuk an ominous feeling. My head. My body feels like it is being torn apart. The guests began to collapse to their knees and groan in pain. They were afflicted by a curse that drained the life out of their bodies. Because of this curse, the people there had to feel the pain of their bodies melting away. Very slowly, too, at that. Jin Hyuk frowned. He felt a tingling pain, but he could protect his body from melting thanks to the magic within him. Help me, please. The people there begged for their lives. Most were in their middle ages or even of elderly age. Some were young children. Family of those who received the invitation? It would be too cruel to let them die just because they were here. Especially if he let a child die, he wouldn't be able to dream well for the rest of his life. There should still be around 10 minutes until their body dissolves. This could be stopped if he could defeat Alex. 10 minutes. Jin Hyuk looked at Alex as their eyes met. I see that dissatisfied expression on your face. Why? Is it really bothering you that some bugs are dying? Bugs. Correct. Are there any other ways to call these creatures that can only be used as materials for magic but bugs? At Alex's words, Jin Hyuk smiled. At this point, it was just plain ridiculous. That is why I don't get along with demonic humans. I do want to talk with some, but you people just make it impossible. Jin Hyuk sprinted forward and narrowed the distance at once. The dagger was held in reverse and used to slash down the monsters in his path. The undead monsters had all looked quite thick due to their fat layers, but that wasn't enough to stop his blade. The strongest skill which could cut down anything. His sword attack flew across his path, cutting down more than 10 monsters. But the flesh of the monsters he had cut was beginning to heal immediately. Even if they are bugs, it is still quite impressive. There is no better material than this to use for recovery. Alex chuckled. Indeed. This was his plan to waste time. He would use the vitality of all the people here to keep his monsters alive. Eventually, everyone here would die. A sensible tactic. It's probably the most standard method too, but so upsetting. What is? It is a pity that you're acting proud and treating this as if it is a trump card. Was he playing around by just having his monsters regenerate? Wouldn't it be enough to erase them entirely without giving them time to recover? Jin Hyuk pointed the dagger at Alex. The light began to gather at a single point. The black energy was dazzling. LV2 Daylight is activated. The monsters all twisted their bodies at the blazing energy. They must have been in great pain. The light attribute was known to cause additional damage to these kinds of monsters. As expected, you used that. Alex clicked his tongue as things happened as he expected. He clearly had seen the battle video against Chun Yu-seong, a skill that compressed magic into a single point before releasing it in a straight line and imbued with an element that was the antithesis of the undead. So he clearly had prepared for it as well. If Jin Hyuk activated that skill, he had a secret trick ready and ordered his undead to execute it. But the undead wasn't moving from their places. What? What? I have frozen their feet so they cannot move. He combined several skills at once to get the maximum results from his attack. The central combination was to use daylight and then the ice formation skill to restrict their movement. The only real downside to daylight was its long activation time, but ice formation was able to make up for it. With this, checkmate. Jin-hyuk smiled, and at that moment, a giant ray of light engulfed the undead monsters. Heat rose up from the ground as not a single monster was spared. This was because there wasn't even a single cell left for them to regenerate from. This was my first time trying it out, but it was pretty good. Jin-hyuk liked doing this, fusing two skills for a higher performance result. By using them like this, he could optimize his skills for battle. The sense of exhilaration from this was great. On the other hand, it cannot be. Alex wasn't able to accept this situation. 10 minutes. Everything ended before 10 minutes were up. If all the humans here had been absorbed by his furnace, he could have summoned an even higher level undead. But the undead he had summoned were already wiped out. Damn it! Alex pulled a scalpel from his sleeve that had a transparent liquid dripping down from it. It was poison. This showed how desperate he was. Are you for real? A necromancer in close combat? As Jin-hyuk thought that, Alex threw the scalpel straight toward his face. Jin-hyuk casually knocked it away, cutting the scalpel in half as it fell to the ground. So disappointing? Was that your way of running away? Why draw out a scalpel? It seemed like he had planned to escape by creating a momentary diversion. Throwing is done like this. The target was a short distance away and unable to respond. The dagger which he threw went right for Alex's chest. The skill activation was cancelled right away. How about I educate you a little? You get what I'm saying? Don't try too hard to answer me. The place where my dagger pierced you is your lungs, so breathing will be tough. Save. You enjoyed others being hurt and groaning in pain, but you don't like it happening to you? Wasn't he being too biased? A true necromancer should enjoy his own suffering. Alex grabbed Jin-hyuk's shoes, but he ignored him. From now on, I will tell you how you will die. Just a little spoiler to his ultimate end because it was no longer just about him. Your lungs will slowly bleed out for the next couple of hours. A human's life was tough to end. Somehow, all the organs in their bodies would work as hard as possible to even eke out an extra second of life. And after that long struggle, you will start to choke as blood fills your lungs. Not as painful as dying in a fire, but still a gruesome end. The more he heard about his fate, the more terrified Alex became. This pain. Free me. Cough. Cough. My heart hurts with breathing, Alex begged. His face was becoming more twisted with pain and agony with every word he struggled to speak. It was probably the feeling of blood seeping into his lungs. It is upsetting, but I am not interested in becoming a killer. What? Life is the most precious thing, so I will never take it with my own hands. What do you... Ha! Alex reached for Jin-hyuk, but he couldn't even reach him now. The last resort for trash like you. No. Just an hour was too short. Considering the evil he committed here, not to mention the quests he needed to do just to become a necromancer, Alex deserved no mercy. He would die in a prolonged state of suffering. He would die as he apologized for the sins of experimenting on innocent humans and defiling their corpses by making undead. While leaving the venue, Jin-hyuk saw all the items that were part of auction were lying on the floor unattended. Quite a few treasures were damaged, but fortunately, the best items made it through unscathed. It feels like I am inside a treasure dungeon. The most valuable items he recovered were the heart of the ichthyosaur, unknown iron ore, and the vault of Michelangelo. The crown that Elise had given in as payment was also recovered. Nice. This was enough. Heart of ichthyosaur, A. Unknown. Iron ore, B. And vault of Michelangelo, C. Are used as materials. You have successfully created a large-capacity subspace inventory. Gold grade, 5,000. A yellow-colored subspace inventory appeared with a dazzling light. Finally, he could clear off the cumbersome items, but at that moment, he felt something from the people around him. Jin-hyuk quickly turned his head. Is someone already waking up? He thought as such for a moment as he turned around and saw the auction host was standing behind him. "Thank you so much for saving us." The host thanked Jin Hyuk while his son was hifing behind him. The little guy also thanked him, and Jin Hyuk realized the buy he saved earlier was son of the auction host. "I wasn't planning on just taking them, so—" Jin Hyuk tried to defend himself as he took the items without asking anyone. "It's fine." The host cut him off, and Jin Hyuk gave him a puzzled look. "I saw you right before things went chaotic, but you were the one who saved us, right? I have no thoughts of accusing the person who saved my one and only son," the auctioneer said while smiling and hugging his son. At that moment, Jin Hyuk felt a different kind of happiness that he has felt first time in his entire life. It's not a bad feeling. Jin Hyuk left the venue with a proud smile on his face. On the third floor of the Tower of Trials, there were two places the players hadn't reached yet. One was the boss room on the third floor that blocked the way to the fourth floor. The other one was right here. It was a place called the Cathedral of Hatred, a labyrinth that had destroyed countless challengers. But, contrary to its notoriety, the place had been conquered a while back by the demonic humans. "Damn, why is the security so tight in here? This isn't good for us." A slender woman grunted, a lot of anger expressed through her words. She couldn't help it. Layers of barriers and traps were placed here to prevent players from approaching. "Stop complaining, Milena. I am already not feeling too well because of that stupid doctor." The Asian man next to her clicked his tongue. It wasn't much, but the cold energy which exuded from his body wasn't inferior to that of a giant monster. "Li Qiao, should I be paying attention to your mood now? That would be a good thing, if you don't want to die." "Interesting. You speak like you are a lot stronger than me?" Milena took his gaze head on. It wouldn't be strange for their weapons to be unsheathed at any moment. "Both of you, let it go." A man in a black hood interrupted their little fight with a low and heavy voice. Unlike what Milena and Li Qiao were wearing, the man's hood had an inverted red cross on its shoulder alongside the Roman numeral 7. "I understand." They obeyed the command and just nodded their heads. Milena and Lu Qiao had worked outside the tower for over a decade but still didn't get along. Truthfully, it was contradictory to even talk about demonic humans getting along with each other. They were an apocalyptic cult that indulged in a pseudo-religion. Their members were made of killers who killed for pleasure, to the point of even becoming mercenaries. They were monsters who had thrown their humanity away. It was a group that hated being bound by any kind of law. But no matter how poor Alex's skills are, I don't understand how he lost even with so many resources. Li Qiao opened his mouth. Well, a guy named Kang Jin Hyuk was one of the tower veterans. His rank should even be similar to ours. Do not be so careless. Maybe he is higher ranked than us. At those words from the hooded man, air escaped from their mouths. Ah, please. Even the executives who went up to the 20th floor were treated as insane. You think he went even higher than them? I also think we are putting him on a pedestal he doesn't deserve. We chose Tower of Trials, a virtual reality world to avoid the eyes of the CIA and stuff, and we know more about the tower than others. Right. The other players don't have a special reason to move like us. There was no need for them to hide in the tower to avoid the eyes of others. Was there a fool who threw away his life in this tedious game? Why would he? But a strange tension lingered on the man's face. His intuition had made him rise to this association's executive position. Beyond that, his own fear continued to send him warning signals. He should never underestimate Kang Jin Hyuk. Do not be careless. That was something only fools did. Then, you two, go with Kadrick. If there was even a slight chance to take down Kang Jin Hyuk, he would seize it. Jin Hyuk bowed slowly towards the outskirts of the temple. Before entering this realm, there was a task he needed to resolve first. After all, the autumn leaves here can be rated as the best in the tower. It has to be here. Jin Hyuk's eyes moved quickly between all the similar-looking trees. Among them, there was a special tree that differed from the others. Found it. Jin Hyuk looked at it. It was called the Human Face Tree, a giant tree with the face of a human. It was a tree that was quite popular among players as it had been uploaded to the community quite a few times. It was then that the Human Face Tree turned to him. Did you come here to solve my quiz? Yes. Fine. If you answer all 3 questions, I will give any number of maple leaves I have. Then let me ask you the first question. Please answer about the optimum depth and temperature for the seawater species Kelgorn. It is a naturally easy question. No amount of error will be allowed. Depth is 175, and the temperature is 1.5 degrees. Jin Hyuk immediately answered the question. How many times have I snorkeled down there? In the middle of being impressed by Disney's Little Mermaid, he got bored and went for a dive there. So he knew. Not just the depth and temperature, he could even tell the tree about the changes in the current flow. The tree looked shocked as Jin Hyuk said, "Next." I didn't say you are right yet. If it isn't the answer, you wouldn't be silent. Use your head. Fine. Then the second question. How players can take the Filiani's spongy body. Just put salt of sunshine desert and a holy water, made by the priest who finished the second appetizer in a pot, and cook the white tree growing in the winter cave with firewood for 5 hours. On low heat. Another correct answer. The tree's face was becoming stiffer. He had asked the most difficult questions to this rude human, but wasn't he answering them too easily? And now there was just one chance left. The range of questions that the human-faced tree could ask covered topics up to the 10th floor. However, this wasn't the time to be fair. Because its pride as the greatest, oldest, and most knowledgeable tree on the 3rd floor was at stake. Last question. The giant eagles of Sky Plateau only mate once a year. Which month is that in? November 17th, when the first snow falls. An answer that shouldn't have come out appeared anyway. Who are you? How can you know all of this? The human-faced tree was angry. Beksu over Tusu. Phew. It is my first time seeing someone break the quiz. Boskidis future. Wow, does this make sense? This is some Naver intellectual. Pizza sweet and sour pork. John Mateng. It looks like an awful situation, to be honest. It's like the god sent this guy to smash this place. Beksu over Tusu. Admit it. Thanks to the guy, we can see the reward for the first time. Seyoung Yeonhwan. What will he choose? When a player passes the quiz, they would be given the right to choose one of the special items in the tree's possession. Red leaves boosted attack power, yellow for defense. Finally, the green would increase agility. Now tell me, what do you want from me? The tree asked. And the viewers were all focused. Depending on his choice, the fight with the boss on the 3rd floor would change. But you use a lot of trashy maple leaves to hide the good ones. You have black ones, right? Give them to me. Jin Hyuk's words made everyone dumbfounded. Black leaves? The human-faced tree stuttered as it heard those words it hadn't expected. It was the same for the viewers watching. How do you know about the black leaves? It doesn't matter how I know. Just give it to me. But they're... The tree seemed agitated. The black leaves had a decay effect. However, it needed to dry and kill all of its remaining leaves to make its black leaves. This meant that no other player could take the quiz. Now, don't go around making excuses. You said it with your own mouth that I get to take what I want. Did it already forget that it promised upon the honor of the spirit? Ah, it couldn't have. Kook. Not that. Please. Instead of that, if there is anything else I can do. I don't need anything. All I want is the black leaf. As long as the stream was live, the information about the black leaves had already gone out to everyone. As time passed, the information would spread, and more people would pass the quiz. I cannot leave it for them. Even after all that, he could not let anyone else get a leaf enchanted with similar attributes. Because they are not allowed to use items like mine or those I don't have. This was a perfectly normal way to play. Jin Hyuk held out his palm. No compromise here. And finally, the reddish autumn leaves which covered the tree began to burn black. You have answered all 3 questions asked by the human-faced tree. You have acquired 1280 black leaves. Black leaf. Acquisition difficulty, Fa. Description. When used on weapon or armor, a special effect of corruption attribute inflicts additional damage equal to 1% of target's total health per 3 minutes when attacked, is added. The caster does not take damage. Only enemies are affected by the attack. Nice. Finally, he had all of the puzzle pieces. Jin Hyuk turned to the temple, leaving the tree behind, dying. The statues were ready to attack Jin Hyuk, and he leaped toward them, holding his dagger in the hand. Jin Hyuk was standing in front of the defeated statues, holding his dagger. Veteran identification. The more I look at it, the more creepy it gets. I don't know if the boss fight can be successful. Baksu over Tusu. It is possible. I started watching this Hyung from when the stream started, and I believe him. It doesn't matter whether you believe it or not, but I want you to stop talking about it. Jin Hyuk scratched his head, feeling annoyed. Big Pie. Huh? Did he say something to us? Bland curry. Ah, no. Would he have said that to the viewers if he was sane? Anger management. Right. But he knows that he would lose subscribers if he said that to the viewers. I did say it to you people. Just watch this quietly, because he had no intention of making them feel like they owned his channel. If you want to get out of the channel, get out, and if you want to watch, then do so. But keep one thing in mind, I am the owner of this channel, not you. I don't have to be dragged around by these viewers. Because once high-quality content was shown, people would come and stick around. It is more important to stick to one concept. Right. That would be how the unknown player worked. And as Jin Hyuk thought that. Kong Hodo. I understand this Hyung's concept. Lol. Dead life. Wow, so chic. Beksu over Tusis. It is normal to feel bad, but why do I don't? I feel like I'm a pervert. Seyoung Unhwan. To be honest, it is fresh. Some viewers were becoming attached to this tough-acting player concept. But then suddenly, the chat volume increased frantically. Something registered itself on Jin Hyuk's senses. He could feel powerful magic from the gate to the north. This wasn't a raid from a large guild, as he had made sure to let them know he was doing this alone. Jin Hyuk frowned as he felt disgusting and unpleasant energy. There was no doubt. A necromancer, to be precise, one from the Demonic Human Association. They sure don't want to give up, do they? Broadcast viewers, I will turn it back on again after a while, Jin Hyuk said to his stream. Dead998. No, what are you saying? What are you, a eunuch? To go for a sudden release. Beksu over Tusis. Hyung, can't you see that the number of viewers is increasing now? You need to paddle when the water comes. End of chat. Broadcast has ended. The first broadcast was now complete, and the chat window activity stopped. This is more tiring than I thought. Please hit the like button so more people can enjoy this awesome story, and subscribe to the channel for more videos. Now let's get back to the story. At the northern Supreme Harmony Gate of the temple, dozens of necromancers struggled to reach the 4-story pagoda, where the key to the inner chamber was stored. They had been trying to break through for almost 10 hours, but the path hadn't opened as it was blocked by a thick defensive layer of stone statues. Gather the troops. We need to break through here. Kadrick pulled on a strap around his neck. He continued to release magic but only felt frustration as there were no results. If it dragged on like this, his necromancers would only become exhausted before reaching the boss. The undead army roared wildly. Most of their numbers were skeleton warriors or archers, but mid-sized monsters such as the Durahan could occasionally be spotted. Certainly, it is nice to see. Jin Hyuk took out the popcorn and cola he kept in the subspace inventory. Dust made up of bone and rocks fell all over the ground. 2 different kinds of armies. Their goal was to wipe out their opponent. It was a battle that was difficult to predict which side would push ahead, and how much time had passed. The tight balance between the sides was beginning to tip slightly. It was very subtle, but hard to ignore. Oh, they will break through? Surprisingly, the necromancers and undead army were doing well. Jin Hyuk gathered his magic, and, at that moment, a new variable entered the battlefield. What? A necromancer who had been frantically using black magic suddenly shifted to wind magic. It was a surprise for 2 reasons. The first surprise was that a human being had appeared from the side. The second was that said human brought with them a blade covered with sword energy. He activated a shield to defend against the sudden attack. It increased his chance of survival by 1% at least. In an instant, a black curtain of magic spread around the necromancer. He had activated the best defense skill at his disposal. Of course, it was almost as good as nothing. Kill him! With an annoyed command, the skeleton archers aimed their bows toward Jin Hyuk. The strings on their bows were pulled tight. Poison, frost, fire. Magic arrows imbued with 3 elements were fired off at the same time. Before the arrows could even hit, however, LV2 Ice Formation is activated. Blessing of the Stars is activated. Magic of a wholly different level surged out. Some of the higher-level undead was going out of control due to the light pouring from the sky. The Durahans frantically swung their axes around, smashing everything in sight. Why are the ones who went mad attacking us? Focus on controlling them again. All these guys have lost their minds due to that divine power. Save me. The order and control of the battlefield had collapsed. This was a declaration of war on Kadrick. Since you rang the doorbell, I should treat the guests properly. Kadrick, who had been in command of all the troops from the rear, felt like he was walking into hell. Even if that damned idiot has to show up, does he have to come at the worst time? Victory was already theirs. If they had just pushed a little further, he would have gotten the key hidden inside the 4-story pagoda. There was only one step left to reach the goal. However, all of the carefully made plans were thrown into the mud instead due to the masked player's appearance. See Kadrick. Even the third group was destroyed. There is no doubt that only our people are being aimed at. Skeletons or Durahans cannot stop him. He had created 4 groups to maximize raid efficiency. Precious agents that had made it possible to simplify the supply of magic were now collapsing. Kadrick groaned. This was not how he wanted things to be. Currently, there were 3 Death Knights that they had created by investing enormous amounts of resources. It was their secret weapon that they had brought in to deal with the monsters inside the temple. The main problem was that the other party also knew about it. This way. Jin Hyuk, who had been raging only on the necromancer's side, went towards the stone statues this time. He headed towards the strongest stone statue there, the Moai stone statue. Can you catch me if you move this slow? After Jin Hyuk provoked the opponent, he went towards the middle of a pack of undead. Oh! The giant stone statue with a single face soared high into the sky. Its shadow fell dark on the undead and the necromancers below. Quack! Why are you here, you idiot? Avoid it! If it falls down here, we all die! As the panicked screams and shouts filled the air. The Moai statue fell. A large crater was formed in the middle of the ground due to the impact. There was no need to even wonder what happened to those who had been beneath it. Of course, Jin Hyuk, who made it happen, was alive and well. Oh my, it must hurt. No longer able to control his temper, Kadrick shouted at Jin Hyuk. This brat! What kind of enmity do you have to keep throwing dirt in our faces? We have done no harm to you, so why are you trying to burn down our livelihood? Kadrick was angry. Even from just hearing his voice, he sounded like a child who could not hold back his anger. Yes, old man. I understand that you have many undead troops prepared, so stop using your mouth. I will kill you. Kadrick's face was red, and, at the same time, a large explosion of magic erupted from the staff he was holding. Kadrick activates his unique ability, Gravekeeper of the Black Tomb. Special skill, Guardian of Pyramid, is activated. Kadrick, are you using that here? There will be no more mana to use to face the boss after this. His fellow necromancers shouted at him to stop. It was then that the ground began to crack. New undead began to rise up from the ground. These looked more like mummies with bandages wrapped around them. Their armor, adorned with gold and jewels alongside their Egyptian-style crescent swords, stood out in particular. Kadrick had to calm his heart. Due to this skill consuming more of his magic, his face was pale but filled with a sense of accomplishment. The ability to summon the bodyguards of a pharaoh. Seeing something like this, it felt like doing everything on his own was a bit too much. Perhaps using necromancers and summoners to do the work while he gave out orders from behind was better? To be honest, he felt envious. Did I overdo it? Kadrick clicked his tongue briefly, but it was just for a moment. Come here. I need help. Kadrick grabbed the necromancer next to him by the neck. Kadrick, sir. Kadrick absorbed the necromancer's vitality through his hand. The necromancer who had been grabbed soon twisted their body. They tried to escape, but to no avail. Since Kadrick wasn't the type to let his prey go. Quiet now. The pain will only grow if you struggle. The screams began to fade. Not long after, the dried-up necromancer crumbled to ashes. Disgusting. Aren't you on the same side? Of course we are the same. Which is why we dedicate our lives for the sake of victory. You are saying good words for someone who kills people without consent. Perhaps I should agree. Later. If you go to hell and meet the guy, ask him directly how he feels. Kadrick, who had been supplied with enough magic, stroked his staff. And the undead soldiers at the front line, which had been pushed back by the Moai statue, began to turn the tide as their new reinforcements arrived. Let's begin again, Cedric said with a devilish smile on his face. Spears made of gold were swiftly piercing the stone statues, the power behind each attack overwhelming. It had to be at least the level of a Death Knight to destroy 10 of the Moai statues at once. The Moai statues were powerful. A simple change in the number of the undead should not have been enough to change the outcome. How is that? Can you still speak after seeing that? Kadrick smiled confidently as Jin Hyuk bit his lip. Seeing that only made Kadrick more excited. Pwahaha, at a loss of words now? Right. It is normal to be excited. Jin Hyuk tilted his head. What was with this old man? No. I was at a loss of words because it is just too ridiculous. Seriously, were you planning on attacking the boss with just this much strength? No matter how good this looked, they would have been wiped out in 5 minutes. No matter how carefully he considered the scenario, the necromancers were bound to have been destroyed. However, despite his honest advice, Kadrick was considering it a simple bluff. Whenever one is pushed to a corner, they start to talk nonsense. Well done. Let us end this boring conversation. Kadrick gave the order. His mummy soldiers roared loudly, their mouths seemingly torn as black smoke seeped from inside them. Kill him. In a forest a little distance away from the temple. At the highest point among the trees, 2 people, a man and a woman, watched the battle while perching on a branch. It was Milena and Li Qiao who were sent from the Demonic Human Association. A lot more reckless than I thought. Milena tilted her head as Li Qiao said. His intentions when destroying the first group were good, but not getting out immediately was foolish. Pwah. Well, that isn't courage for sure, but plain stupidity. But what on earth was he thinking by not running away? He must have misjudged the difference in power with the opponent. He thought we only had skeletons and Durahans, but he was wrong. Kadrick's unique ability is so annoying. Black magic that could resurrect a large number of corpses was useful for this battle, which was why he had been put in charge. On the other hand, Kadrick's opponent seemed too lax. And because he is foolish, we don't have a reason to go out. Kadrick can handle this on his own. Or at least that's what they thought. A strong energy rose up from the masked man. What is that? It was not magic or divine power, but rather a sense of coldness, ominous and dark. Their eyes shook at the ferocious magic that covered the dagger in the masked man's hand. What is that? What kind of absurd skills does he have? Milena jumped up in disbelief. It was the same for Li Qiao, who was utterly dumbfounded. This was absurd. No matter how strong and confident he was in his skills, who would think they could win against such a large army of undead? Li Qiao gulped. Due to his battle with the stone statues, he thought the masked man must have used up at least half of his strength. However, if this was all just a trap, if this whole sequence was carefully calculated to provoke Kadrick and end with him being surrounded by the enemy line, perhaps this would become the worst ending imaginable for them. I remember my experience at that time. Jin Hyuk remembered the time with a mysterious guy who offered him to teach his special sword style called Pendulum Spirit Sword Arts. In the next moment, you have been able to imitate a portion of Pendulum Spirit Sword Art skill. The sensation was ominous as goosebumps rose up on his skin. Right, this is it. Jin Hyuk smiled. That feeling of something creeping in. Ice formation and blessing of the stars were good skills, but this was why he liked the sword grave more. Magic and divine abilities do not have this kind of thrilling taste. This ability to choose to attack alone without paying attention to defense was the real ability that made a veteran of the tower a veteran. Was it like this? Jin Hyuk moved his dagger, which was covered with black energy, to the left and right. The blade's smooth trajectory continued to cut the air a few times before... Finally. Oh, I did it. A portion of the Pendulum Spirit Sword Art skill is being reproduced. Understanding of the Pendulum Spirit Sword Art increases. Jin Hyuk had managed to reproduce the most amazing sword dance. It had been an art he had ignored entirely while spending 10 years of his life in this game. However, now that he had the skills of a swordsman in his repertoire, such a gap didn't seem like a problem. The sound of the wind blowing filled the air. Now he understood why this sword technique was called such. Understanding of the pendulum spirit sword art increases. How to properly use it, he would comprehend it all. Understanding of the pendulum spirit sword art increases. As the status windows appeared constantly, memories flowed into his mind as he reached a true understanding. Pendulum spirit sword art. Black flames spread around his body. Fifth form. This was the final form of the sword technique. Pendulum spirit nirvana. This fifth form was referred to as the essence of the sword. What? Kadrick's eyes shook. At the same time, Jin Hyuk swung his dagger horizontally. The first thing which escaped his blade was the wind. It was a weapon that only released wind but also magic. The mummies in front of it stood in chance. Their bodies were torn to shreds as their blackened flesh became exposed. A powerful shock managed to reach Kadrick despite his barrier. His three-layered shield was shaking. However, the dagger had come to strike without even giving time for him to catch his breath. No pressure was felt on his shields as the attack came. All that he registered was alongside a terrifying sound that made Kadrick's head turn downwards. He could no longer see the arm which should have been there. This cannot be. He had cut down all of his mummies in one blade swing. Moreover, he had even cut off his arm. His mouth began to clatter. Not too long ago, he had cursed his disciple, who had died in vain because he could not understand how the boy had lost. But only in this situation could Kadrick understand why Alex had died without resistance. This was a monster that could not be destroyed. Running away was the only way to save his life. Death Knight, stop that man. Now. The stone statues were no longer his concern. Even if it meant sacrificing all of the undead and necromancers here, he had to get out immediately. He whipped his body around before falling down and headed towards the northern gate. No, he tried to walk away. If you want to leave, you need to get permission from the opponent first. The voice he didn't want to hear was already there. And at that moment, Black Moon Knight is activated. The sword that reflected the black moon fell upon Kadrick's face. The moment of death felt as if it had passed slowly. He didn't even notice it coming for him. When did he even get this close? No. Did he ever have the chance to run from this man? It felt like his head would explode with so many thoughts in his mind. And then, those were Kadrick's last thoughts. His body fell to the floor. As Kadrick died, all of the undead under his control turned to dust. Other necromancers were still alive, but not for much longer. The stone statues were coming close to them. Save me! The battlefield was finally becoming stained with blood, and using that gap, everyone seems quite busy. Jin Hyuk approached the 4-story pagoda that no one seemed to care about now. You have purchased 4 mid-tiered mana recovery potions. Jin Hyuk bought 4 mana potions and restored his MP. Let's give it all I've got, said Jin Hyuk while tossing the empty potion bottles. On his way to the temple, he found a shield lying on the floor. This bring back memories, saying this. He kicked the edge of the shield and it flipped into the air, and Jin Hyuk caught it in his left hand while holding his dagger in right hand and took a defensive pose in front of the guardians of the temple. The 4 great heavenly kings. And with that, this chapter comes to an end. I hope that you liked today's video, and if you did, hit that like button as today's like aim is 500 likes. Comment part 8 below for next part. Also consider subscribing with the notification bell on to get notified as soon as a new video drops onto the channel. You can also join the channel to support me financially, and I'll meet you in the next video. Until then, thanks for watching.